Let's get started with the latest in Los Angeles, California, where tensions are escalating to a fourth day after protests against immigration and customs enforcement, better known as ICE. Demonstrators and police faced off in scattered protests in downtown LA as more than 100 people were arrested just last night, according to Mayor Karen Bass. Damage to the area appears to be limited to a portion of downtown, while most of the city has not been affected by the protest at all. Meanwhile, President Trump has now deployed 4,000 National Guardsmen and now Marines to Los Angeles as well. All this while Governor Gavin Newsom is suing the administration, saying they unlawfully trampled over California's sovereignty when they federalized the state National Guard. Meanwhile, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth went to Capitol Hill today to address the overall cost of sending troops to Southern California. However, Hegseth repeatedly did not answer questions about the cost or what resources were being taken away in other areas to send troops to LA. First things first, that's bullshit. You get summoned to Capitol Hill, you're the Defense Secretary of the United States of America, you're in front of representatives who control our budget, the legislating body that controls our budget. They ask you a damn question about what it costs. You're supposed to have the answers. You're supposed to have the answers, and you're supposed to be willing to answer those damn questions. That's BS. Let's get that out the way. Secondly, I'm going to have my man Kevin Frazier on in just a few minutes, who is a Los Angeles resident. He's a host for Entertainment Tonight, and obviously he's been on the ground, on the scene throughout this ordeal because it's right in his area. He lives there, so he would know what's truth and what's falsehood as it pertains to several things. Number one, was it really, really necessary to send 2,000 National Guardsmen initially? Was it really, really necessary to send an additional 2,000? Was it really necessary to send 700 Marines? Is this all pomp and circumstance, or are things really, really that bad that we have to prioritize making sure federal properties, federal buildings, etc., are protected, and Donald Trump is doing the right thing by taking this kind of stance? We have to look at Democrats when it comes to the leadership, that of Governor Gavin Newsom or Mayor Karen Bass. Less about Bass, more about Newsom. Let's get to Bass first. It's Los Angeles. You know, we've seen riots there before. We understand how things can go down. And so engaging in preventative measures, I don't know how awful that is for the Trump administration to do if they are honest and open about that's why they're doing it, as opposed to giving a picture that something is more egregious than it really, really is. It seems a bit of sensationalism and embellishment is entering the equation, at least in some people's eyes. She's saying that the LAPD did not need the help of the federal government. It did not need the help of the president. It did not need National Guardsmen and Marines there. All you're doing is exacerbating a situation. My response to that would be, fair enough, that's a reasonable conclusion, but having Marines and a National Guard there shouldn't incite people to engage in lawlessness even more so. It should be a deterrent. And if it's not a deterrent, while the Marines and the National Guards are there, why are we to believe that them not being there would be a deterrent? That doesn't make sense to me, Mayor Bass. It just doesn't. So I don't want to hear that it's exacerbating the situation. Lawlessness is lawlessness. And if you have law enforcement officials, National Guardsmen, U.S. Marines, federal participation in the mix, and they believe that this is what they need to do, breaking the law doesn't cut it. That doesn't mean everybody. That doesn't even mean most people are not being peaceful protesters. But for those who are not, who are throwing bricks and stuff at the cops, no, arrest their ass. Arrest them. You've got no business doing something like that. Not to National Guardsmen, not to U.S. Marines, not to LAPD, not to any law enforcement official. You engage in violence. Protesting is one thing. Peaceful protesting is one thing. Engaging in mayhem, contributing to mayhem, instigating mayhem is another matter entirely. So I wanted to say that. Let me get to Gavin Newsom. Sir, we kind of see what's going on. You know that, right? You're challenging the border czar, Tom Homan, to arrest you. You're bringing up fourth grade children being bothered and what have you. California is a sanctuary state, which means there are laws in place for you to defy the federal government. a president's order essentially federalizing the state National Guard, which is what you're taking the Trump administration to court over. Just like you have the right to do that, Trump has the right as president of the United States to say, I don't like what I'm seeing, and I feel this is necessary. Now, do I believe that's his objective? Of course I don't. We heard the arguments over dollars being stripped from Medicaid and whether there was a debate going on as to whether or not that was true or not. We saw what was going on between Trump and Elon Musk over the last week. We still see the war in Ukraine with Russia going on. Okay? Tariffs, that situation hasn't been totally resolved. So if you're Trump with the midterms a year away and with you not necessarily being the most popular individual in the polls, this being a subject that you're tackling, which happens to be right in your wheelhouse, where most Americans are siding with you and the Republican Party in this day and age, I mean, boo-boo the fool can see why you would want to tackle this issue. It's a very winnable issue for the Trump administration. Nobody's blind, except possibly Gavin Newsom. Because where it gets interesting is that you being the governor of California, you knowing about your budget deficits, you knowing about how homelessness in the city, although it has decreased somewhat, is being depicted over the national airways, you knowing that being a sanctuary state, how many immigrants and undocumented immigrants have entered the state of California and reside there, even though they're taxpayers, even though they're hard workers and what have you. And no, most of them are not criminals. And the way they're being depicted and talked about has been very, very egregious. No doubt about it. But you exacerbating the situation, not in terms of what you're saying, but how you're saying it and how you're coming at the president. You're trying to tell me that people are not looking at you and they're not going to assume you're trying to politicize all of this to your advantage, especially since you're due to come out of office and you desperately want to be a candidate for the election in 2028? All I'm saying about Gavin Newsom is that I don't know how much this is going to work. Republican pollster Whit Ayers in the Wall Street Journal says, as is so often the case, Donald Trump's opponents are playing right into his hands. This is exactly the kind of fight that Donald Trump loves, with his opponents carrying Mexican flags past burning cars. That's a Republican strategist. We know this. Democrats countered that Trump's decision to initially send 2,000 members of the National Guard into the nation's second largest populous city over the weekend only inflamed the situation while raising legal issues about states' rights. The administration on Monday also deployed about 700 Marines to Los Angeles to protect federal property and personnel and authorized an additional 2,000 National Guard members. What are they saying here? A Democratic strategist. Every day that Donald Trump is talking about immigration and not talking about kicking 13 million people off insurance and Medicaid, he knows he is winning. He wants to see people standing on top of burning cars, waving the Mexican flag. That's the exact imagery that can help him overperform in the midterm elections. So whether it's a Democratic strategist or it's a Republican strategist, they're essentially both saying the same thing. This is a winning hand for Donald Trump. So maybe, just maybe, we need to be a bit more judicious and more careful in our verbiage and our temperament when we're attacking this issue. Because the next things Republicans are going to say is, they're for lawlessness, right? They're going to show these images. They're going to say they're for lawlessness. Folks are going to buy it hook, line, and sinker. And their issues of safety is going to usurp any other concerns they have. I'm talking about the voters. And before you know it, Dems are going to lose the midterms. They're not going to regain any seats in the House or the Senate. And Trump will be able to operate with relative impunity to 2028. I'm sitting here months after the election, seeing what's transpiring in Los Angeles, still waiting for the Democrats, in this case Gavin Newsom, to show me a strategy that's going to work. Still waiting. That's my opinion. But obviously, there are opinions that matter more than mine. And in this case, it'll be my next guest, who happens to be a Los Angelian. He lives there. He's been right there in the streets. Drove down to the riots, the quote-unquote riots, last night. How do I know this? Because I was on the phone with him right before he decided to hop off the phone to get in his car to go there. I'm talking about the host for Entertainment Tonight, one of my best friends in the world. I've known him many, many years, and he's a contributor to this show, the one and only Kevin Frazier for Entertainment Tonight, here to talk about what's going on. What's going on, man? What is going on in Los Angeles, California? We see CNN, we see MSNBC, we see Fox News, we hear political pundits on both sides of the aisle telling us what's going on. What's really going on in Los Angeles? Is it really as bad as it looks?
That's been the disappointing thing, watching national cable news and watching the way they have inflated the situation. At night, things are getting a little ugly with a few agitators that are in a very small sliver of Los Angeles. You have to understand, Los Angeles is a large, sprawling city. Downtown is a small part of it, and in a small part of downtown, there are issues. And let me put it to you this way. Last night, I was at the Peacock Theater for the BET Awards. Now, you're talking about big major stars moving in and out and around the city. There were no problems. There were no issues. There was a convention going on in downtown Los Angeles. And I was so disturbed by what I saw on the national news that I drove up to where the protests were going. I drove right up to the police barricade, and then I turned around. What I saw is a lot of youngsters walking around videoing. I saw people that had graffitied all over the place. The people who are doing the graffiti and causing any damage at all need to go to jail ASAP, and they need to be put under the jail. But the narrative that is being sold, the narrative that is being pushed out there, that LA is in chaos, that the city is burning, that it would have burned down if it wasn't for the president sending in troops, is a false narrative. And I'm telling you that because I've seen it with my own eyes. And so it's very bothersome that LA is functioning as normal, but I see the national news and on both sides. I'm not saying that it's one and not the other. On both sides are inflating this situation, and that has been horrible.
And that's the thing that's been driving me crazy about it, because I saw Fox News, and naturally 2,000 National Guards have been sent by Trump. 700 United States Marines have been sent by Trump, and so you thinking that's 2,700. Plus, they're saying additional National Guardsmen are going to be sent to protect federal property. You see that onslaught of troops coming into a major city in the United States of America. It would certainly give that impression, and Fox News didn't hesitate to do that. But then I look around and I see Aaron Burnett and others from CNN in their own way doing somewhat the same thing. Why are people doing that in your estimation, Kevin, if that's not truly what's going on in the city of Los Angeles?
Eyeball, Stephen. And if you're watching our good friend Stephanie Elam this morning on CNN, she has really done a great job of setting the record straight. She was down near the damage. She talked about the incredible cleanup that has gone on in Los Angeles today in the areas that were affected, how graffiti is being wiped away. The biggest problem right now is graffiti, and there are agitators out there. They can be arrested. I will tell you, last night as I drove around at 10:30 p.m., there was a large police presence, especially around the downtown police station. There was no one interacting with those police. There's just a large police presence. The police force in Los Angeles is one of the nation's largest. They have this situation under control. We heard the head of the LA Police Department say that he wouldn't have sent in, if it was up to him, he wouldn't have sent in the National Guard because he knows he has more than enough resources. So what is happening is that, and you've seen this before, say somewhere floods, and the people go to the flood. And one neighbor, their house is underwater. A block over, they're dry. You stand by the house that is underwater. And so a small sliver of Los Angeles, and I will say this again, a very tiny sliver of Los Angeles, a 3-block radius, there were issues. But during the daytime, there was a peaceful protest in Grant Park with many people there.
But is it possible that it wasn't as big of an issue as it's being made out to be because of the presence of the National Guard and Marines, and as a result, people, is that possible?
No. Before they got there, things had tampered off. You have to go back and look at, you know, when you see these shots of chaos and a car burning or something like that, if you notice, they are interestingly framed shots. Here's all I'm saying: were cars set on fire? Were was concrete thrown at police and other things? Horrible. Arrest those people immediately. I posted earlier today from the celebrations after the Super Bowl in Philadelphia, where they took a laundry truck and they stopped it. They pulled all of the towels and everything out and they set it on fire in the middle of the street in Philadelphia. It looked like chaos. The same thing after UConn won the men's national championship. They were tearing down street lamps and other things. They set furniture on fire on the campus. It looked like chaos. What we need, and all I'm asking from journalists, is to give us a clear and honest picture of what's going on. If I can walk around there, if I can go and get a juice from the juice bar, then everything's okay. We have to stop the graffiti. We have to stop the craziness and the agitators that are going out at night. But the citizens of LA are going about their business everywhere else.
So,
And that's all. They're inflaming the situations.
I'm going to ask how Los Angeles feel about their leadership from Governor Gavin Newsom down to Mayor Karen Bass, because Karen Bass was on MSNBC. I saw her last night saying it's overblown. We do not need all of this. But Gavin Newsom basically threatening border czar Tom Homan to come and arrest him, going off about Trump the way that he has. Some people believe it's political grandstanding. Other people believe it's sincere. I would say this, Kev: as overblown as it may be, the reality is that it is not a good look if you see folks in Los Angeles walking around with flags that ain't American, whether it's Mexican or something else, passing by burning cars. You know that's going to be something that's utilized by the right, because Trump has us talking about this instead of other issues that we should and could have been talking about. Seems to be working to his advantage.
Let's say this, okay? First of all, there's a lot of theatrics and grandstanding going on. And can the situation get under control? Of course. But to villainize people because they are carrying a flag of another nation, let's think about that. Now, we don't villainize the police in New York during the St. Patrick's Day parade if someone is carrying an Irish flag. We don't villainize the people at the Puerto Rico Day parade when it is one of New York's great moments. And we can't villainize the people who carry around Mexican flags. All that is celebrating your heritage. And that's one of the things that America is about, celebrating your heritage. So to say the flags are a problem or other things like that, that's crazy talk. Remember where Los Angeles is. Remember that the state of California was once Mexico. And so to villainize the people who celebrate their heritage is ridiculous. Now, to be upset with the people who are causing damage and destruction, 100%. Arrest them tonight. Put them under the jail. I have no problem with that. These are the wrong people. These are agitators who are coming out for different reasons besides what the people who are joining the peaceful protests are out there for. And so let's not conflate or confuse the two things.
Got it. Is the city of Los Angeles, in your estimation, standing with Governor Newsom and Mayor Karen Bass, or are there an abundance of folks that are siding with Trump and his position and that of his administration and what their stance is? How would you say things are looking in that regard amongst Los Angeles?
I'll say this. I'm not a pollster, but I will tell you this. The city of Los Angeles is based on working people. This city works because there are working people of all nationalities, and many of them Latino, that help keep this city moving. When you make those people afraid to go, to send their kids to school, afraid to go to work, afraid to go and do the essential jobs that they have, then that's a problem, because you are crippling the city. We are seeing this with farmers all over the country who are losing their workers, construction sites who are losing their workers. And when people applaud that and American productivity plummets, then that's a problem, because you're working against our own best interests. So look, violent criminals, get them out of here. People who are doing bad things, get them out of here. But there are lots of people who are violent of all race, creeds, and color. And so let's just keep that in mind before we single out certain people. Is President Trump doing what he said he was going to do? He is. And I'm not mad at him for doing what he said he was going to do. If we had a problem with it, we should have gone to the polls and taken care of that.
Amen.
And now everyone has to get ready for the midterm elections.
There you go. Kevin Frazier.
I will say this,
Go ahead.
Stephen. No one voted. I don't think anyone voted for him to usurp the Constitution.
And is that what is believed he's doing?
The Constitution is there for a reason. And I believe that if you are creating laws and things that allow you to work around it, through it, or push it to a side, then that's a problem, because that's the most un-American thing there is. You know, a lot of people were upset before, and when they were saying unconstitutional things were being done on both sides. Mm-hmm. And if you are not following the Constitution, the law of this land, I have a problem with you. I don't care what party you are from. And by the way, just like you, I'm disgusted by the way the Democratic Party has conducted itself. It's been horrible. What they have done to this nation is horrible. I am disgusted by some of the things that the Republican Party is doing right now. What we need people who actually care about the people in this country and are not putting their self-interest first.
See, I'm going to stop you right there. We're going to end this interview, because then the next thing you're going to say is you're going to try to get me to run again. See, people don't know behind the scenes you've been trying to get me to run for office. It ain't happening.
A lot of talks about, Steve, we've had a lot of talks about this, and I have said that there has to be a change. There has to be a voice that is coming from the middle and can see both sides. We can't be afraid of each other, or we can't be afraid to talk to each other. And one of the things I love about this show, and you know why we are so close, is because it's about bringing everybody on to speak their mind and let them speak their piece. I'm not going to interrupt you. I'm not going to argue. I'm going to let you speak your piece. And that's what it's about. You have to hear the other side to know what they're thinking. So in that way, I do think that there are things that we are discussing and you need to think about, and we'll get into that later. Yeah, there's more of that.
Maybe I'll be lucky enough to get Gavin Newsom to stop running and come on the show. Maybe that'll happen. But we'll talk about that another time.
I don't think he's running, Steve. I don't think he's running. I don't think he's running. His feelings are a little hurt.
It's okay, though. It's okay, though. I understand. Kevin Frazier, appreciate you, man. Stay safe out there, even though it's not as bad as it's trying to be painted out to be. I spoke to you last night while all of this stuff was all over the news. You're like, I'm right here near downtown. I'm absolutely fine. That's what you say, and that's why I had to have you on today. Thanks a lot, man.
The BET Awards. Do you think Mariah Carey is going to come into a riot to accept an award?
That's exactly
Hell
true.
no.
No, that's true. That's true. Appreciate you, bro. Thanks a lot, man. One only Kevin Frazier right here in the house on the Stephen A. Smith Show. Coming up.